How did you start back being a coach? I'm sure there's some great stuff there too.
Started off at the bottom. I was a second assistant at a junior college of all places and worked my way up. I was a JUCO coach.
What was your first win when it came to growing organically?
We've got those things in place to where we go bring in people. If they meet us halfway with that work ethic and activity, they're going to be successful.
It had to be easier when you're coaching your team, like you already know the mechanics of coaching.
You can teach people how to quote. You can teach people all that stuff. That's the part that I had a big void in.
Managing people is one of the toughest things.
Yeah.
So how do you approach building these champions in your agency?
Got a tremendous team. Today, just over 8 years of being an agent, we're sitting at over 18 million, and I think we're like number 52 this year in best in company.
So you bought the $3 million agency. Take us through the beginning of that.
You know, when you can only prove yourself 30 times a year, and if you fail, it goes on the cover of the newspaper. You develop a sense of urgency to succeed and maximize everything you can.
So what's the number one piece of advice you give any agent listening out there that wants to grow their agency?
Yeah, I think the wildest thing that we've had was actually with an employee. He went to lunch, was out at lunch. We noticed he's 15 minutes late. He's 30 minutes late. He's 45 minutes late. Finally, somebody looks out into the parking lot. We're in a strip mall. They look out in the parking lot. Well, his car's here. And one of our other employees goes out there, and the guy's asleep at the wheel, passed out. No one knows what's going on. He's locked in the car. Won't wake up. We're got multiple people trying to bang on the window, shake the car. Finally, have to call the authorities to come and get this guy out. And it turns out, I'm thinking, okay, we got drugs issues. What's going on? Turns out he just had this really weird, rare medical condition, and that's the first time it ever hit him. Luckily, he was parked, kind of like narcolepsy or something like that. But it wasn't that. That's what we all thought. It wasn't that. It was something else. Anyway, yeah, he passed out at the wheel. Had to have authorities come. We had a crowd of like 50 people around this guy's car by the time. Things is great advertisement for the agency. Let me tell you. But yeah, my name is BJ Hill. I own Summit Insurance in Loveland, Colorado, and I'm an insurance dude.
Boom! Wow. That's a heck of a story.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
It was a bit different. So yeah.
What were you guys thinking when, multiple people, you started calling more people outside and banging on the windows?
Yeah.
That had to be kind of scary.
I'll be honest with you. I thought he passed away. Because we got people shaking it, and he's just slumped over, like, out of it. But young dude, like mid-20s, young dude, like, all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, this is not
Has
good.
that happened? Did it happen to him before, or was this when he found out he had the condition?
This was a first, according to him, it was the first time. I don't know if he was keeping it a secret from us because he hadn't worked for us that long, but it was a scary, scary deal.
Wow. Yeah. That seems like it's dangerous for him to be driving around.
Exactly.
Might adjust his risk.
Yeah. we upped the coverage at that point. Yes.
Yeah. You're like, sorry, but we need to make some changes to your policy. Well, awesome. It's so good to have you here on the podcast. Yeah. Why don't you give the folks that are listening a little background? Like, how did you I know that you were a coach prior. Why do you start back being a coach? I'm sure there's some great stuff there too.
Yeah. Went straight from playing in college to coaching and started off at the bottom. I was a second assistant at a junior college of all places and worked my way up. I was a JUCO coach, some form or fashion for about 9 or 10 years, and then got my chance at the Division I level, was an assistant, and then was a head coach at the Division I level for 6 years before they retired me early, AKA fired my butt. So, yeah, it was a great. It was a passion. Obviously, a big part of my life. The game was for a long, long time, and then bought the first agency. Bought a $3 million agency in January 1 of 2017. I couldn't spell insurance or liability as being a former college basketball coach, so very intimidating. Had zero confidence to go from like one of 350 Division I head coaches to, an insurance dude, was intimidating. I didn't know anything, didn't come up through the industry, and was very unconfident. Let's put it mildly, but it took me a while, but eventually started pulling from what I had done for so long to be successful in that area. And today, just over 8 years of being an agent, we're sitting at over 18 million and finished, I think, top, I think we're like number 52 this year in Best in Company, and got a tremendous team. They deserve all the credit, and it's fun again. So yeah, man.
Dude, love that. That is so awesome. So you bought the $3 million agency. Take us through the beginning of that, because I know when I first bought the agency, right around the same size. No, mine was smaller. Mine was like 2.2.
Yeah.
But that first year sucked. Because I knew nothing as well.
I don't think I've ever worked so hard and felt like I got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Is that I basically feel like the only thing I accomplished that year was passing the Series 6. I'll never forget. So I bought a book from a guy who's in the Allstate ALR Hall of Fame and specialized. It was him, his daughter, another part-time person, and a brand new service person when I started going in there right before I bought it. And like, that was his whole deal. Obviously sold a ton of it. It was his comfort zone. They weren't growing on the P&C side, but he did an excellent job in that. And so I'm like, okay, it's a big part of bonus. I found a good book to purchase for that reason. A lot of stuff to hunt and mine and all that stuff. And I don't know, maybe I was asleep that day and training in Chicago for those 10 days, but I don't remember anybody ever telling me that I had to have I knew I had to get it, but I had no idea that I had to get it within the first 6 months or I was going to lose all those accounts. And I remember getting an email from corporate about month 3 or 4, I think it was month 3, saying, hey, just as a reminder. And I'm like, reminder? This is the first time I've ever heard this. And studied for it about as hard as I studied for the P&C. And I think I got like a 50%. And, now I'm really starting to sweat because you can only take it once a month. So now I'm in month 4. And I remember basically for the next month going into the office every day and saying, okay, unless this thing is burning down to the ground, don't come get me. And I studied all day and passed it the second time. But yeah, that was scary. And then it was just a little bit of growth. Year 2, I think year 1, year 2, and year 3, we grew like 350 to 360K in premium, almost the exact number for 3 years in a row. And I'm just like, oh my God, I feel like I'm working so hard and we're not getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden it took off. And so, yeah, man, it's since then it's been a constant learning, adding new pieces. Okay, we're getting this big. I didn't realize I needed this. I didn't realize I needed this person on our team. What do we got to add? What do we got to do? And it's just been a constant growth mode and re-analysis, self-inspection constantly.
Yeah, that is wild, man. That first year is so brutal, especially with taking that test.
Yeah.
Like what a curveball,
Yeah.
It's like, hey, it's first time owning a business, or maybe, it was mine.
Yeah.
It's like, by the way, you got to take this really hard test and then make sure that the agency doesn't fall apart. And then I was in the same situation as you, where I had 3 months to sell 12 life insurance policies that I've never sold before either.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Growing up, my old man was an independent agent and did pretty well. And I remember studying for it. He came out to visit me, and I remember being like, hey man, I gotta go study tonight. And he's like, yeah. He goes, that test sucks. I never could pass it. I'm just like, oh, thanks. Appreciate that ball of confidence right there.
Man, yeah, that thing. I got the Series 7 at Merrill, and they gave everybody kind of juiced it as long as they could, because you didn't have to be in production. You just studied. Like, they paid you to study. They paid you a lot. which was crazy. But if you failed, you're fired. And it was like, my daughter was 3, my son, so there was that whole thing. I remember like when I went to hit the screen to, are you sure, are you sure you want to see the score? I had sweat dripping down my face like an airplane.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was just insane. Baby. I got a 73. Perfect. I'm like, perfect.
You take it. Yes. Heck yeah.
C-. I'll take it.
C's get degrees, especially in college basketball. Trust me. Keeps everybody eligible.
Yeah. Well, and they say the lower you are with passing, then the better you're going to be. That's what they said there. So if you get too high of a score, you're not going to be able to do the stuff.
So going from that,
what's that?
So you passed.
You can go, Craig.
So you passed it, then what? So now you get to take that off your plate.
It was with
all the other crap.
Again, didn't know what I didn't know, but I was very driven to succeed and scale and do all the things. Who the heck is this training platform? These people have $40-50 million books. Now they have $80 to $1 million book or $100 million books. I'm like, how do I get there? And start putting my toe in the lead game. That was super intimidating with all the variables involved, lead quality, people that you got to bring in to do it. And what resonated with me was what we refer to as just the centers of influence and the realtors and lenders. That resonated with me with my background in recruiting. I felt like I had people that first couple of years in the agency that if I went out and got the business, they could quote it and do it correctly and do it in the standards that I wanted to promote our name and all those things. So that's what we kind of did year 2 and year 3. And again, didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. And then that's when COVID hit and rates went down. And then all of a sudden rates are at 2%. And that previous, 12 to 18 months of building those relationships, we got more leads. I got more leads than I knew what to do with. And we took off, and I think we went from like 3.6 to 4.6 in 1 year. And then because of that, that's when they opened up buying and merging again and went and purchased basically the twin sister of what I had purchased before, another exact, $3 million, 91% retention, not growing. And so in the course of a year, we grew organically $1 million and then absorbed that $3 million on January 1. And then since then it's taken off. We were at like 4.6. We went from 4.6 to like 8.6 in 1 year. And then we went to that was right.
What year was that? Was that during COVID?
21. Yeah. 21, 22.
Yeah. So right.
And then since then it's gone from, I think we finished 22 at right under 10, and then it's just kind of snowballed. Last year in 24 we started 24 at 12.2 and finished at 17. So yeah, it was big. So
what was your first what was your first win when it came to growing organically?
Having a really good lender trust me, and just having a supreme sense of urgency, and we ended up saving his butt on a deal. And next thing you know, he's sending me a bunch, and he's got a buddy and introduces me to the Mortgage Lenders Association, and it's just kind of rolled from there. I think when some people have asked, I was on a talking to a group of Colorado agents last year, and it was me and a couple other agents that have been doing it for a little bit longer, that 20 to 25 years, whose books were about the same size, and I knew the question was going to come, what has allowed you to have the success maybe in a shorter period of time? And really it was just the sense of urgency you develop as a college basketball coach. I think a lot of people just don't understand maybe, when you can only prove yourself 30 times a year, and if you fail, it goes on the cover of the newspaper, or you got people going at you asking, for your job on Twitter. You develop a sense of urgency to succeed and maximize everything you can. And then also just really focus on what you can control. I see a lot of agents that whine about things that, man, we're never going to change. So it was very similar to coaching. When your best player goes down 2 days before the next game, the other coach don't care. You don't get an asterisk by your record that says, hey, your best player was hurt. You got to figure it out. And I think keeping that mentality or transferring that mentality on to the agency and to our team has helped us a lot.
That's awesome, man. It's cool that you came from the coaching world, because there's so many similarities with sports and coaching, especially when it comes to being an owner and coaching your team.
Yep.
So you already had that under your belt, because I think a lot of agents, including myself, when you first get into the agency and you hire that first person or second person, there's all these questions of, are they doing good?
Right.
I hope I hired a good person and all this stuff. And then you have to learn these variables of, metrics, like what are they even doing? And then, the actions that lead to the results. And I think most likely coming from a coaching background, that you coach you coach them with their plays, and then over and over again, run those reps until they succeed. So it had to be easier when you're coaching your team. Like, you already know the mechanics of coaching.
We all have our strengths. Like, if you're somebody who came up as an LSP, and then you manage an agency, and then you go buy one, like, you don't have to teach people. Like, you can teach people how to quote. You can teach people all that stuff. That's the part that I had a big void in, and I had to go hire people that knew that stuff. But then what I found out real quick is, just because you have a license doesn't mean you want to work at the level that I want to work and scale at. And so finally now I think we're at a piece where we've got the resources in place, i.e. the people that I love to still go recruit. And I love to go find that talented person and make sure now I feel like we've got the platforms and the resources in place so they do learn all those things. Because I've made this mistake. I've done this too many times in the past where I went and found that person and I kind of turned them over to somebody who wasn't necessarily qualified to teach them all those things, because I'm too stubborn. I wasn't going to go backwards and learn it. I lost a couple of really good people, where they were doing all the work, their activity level was high, but they were quoting themselves out of the game, and I didn't know it, and we didn't know it, and we found out later looking at quotes, And so that's kind of where I was like, okay, that's a big hole in our progression. I got to fill that hole before I attempt to, scale with people and bring more stuff in. And I feel like now we've got those things in place to where we go bring in people. If they meet us halfway with that work ethic and activity, they're going to be successful.
So this is clearly your superpower. So for all the other insurance dudes out there that don't have that superpower, I mean, how do you managing people is one of the toughest things. Yeah. So how do you approach building these champions in your agency?
I think,
and I love, by the way, how when you came in, you said it's my team that did this. I mean, clearly that's a sign of a good coach right there, where you're giving all the.
I think, to answer your question, and I made this mistake a lot early on, because again, the not being confident in coming up in the industry. Oh my God, you're licensed and you got a heartbeat. Please come work with me, right? And that didn't work. And because I was so thirsty, so to speak, to get somebody in that position, I didn't tell them all the things I wanted to tell them about accountability, about expectations. I thought, okay, I'll get them in the door and then I'll do that. Now it's a complete 180. I almost, we've got a hiring process where they've got to, jump through the hoops and fill this out and do this video and do that. But then they got to meet with, whatever manager they're going to be working under. And then it comes to me. And if they like them, and I like the video and I like the answers and I like the personality assessment, I basically almost try to talk them out of it, because I'm so much harder on over communicating the expectations up front now, because to me, that's the key. I don't think it's much easier to lead when you've done that on the front end. Now, if you haven't done that and you try to, what I did in the past, which is, I don't want to say bamboozle them, but maybe have it look all sunshine and rainbows. And then they get in there and you're like, hey, no, we got to do this and this and this because I want to be in the top 50 in the country. So you got to change. You got to change now. That didn't work. Now we do all that on the front end. Like, hey, we think we're pretty good. Here's the reasons to back it up. I think what I see in you is really good. I think you're a good fit. But let me be really clear. This is what a typical day looks like. And we've also implemented that is a lot of job shadowing as part of it. By the time they get through all that, if we still make a mistake, that's on us.
Awesome. Yeah. We've noticed the same thing. Craig and I have had that conversation a lot. And it's like definitely setting those expectations from front. I think, you know what it is? I think you nailed it too when it comes to confidence. Yeah. You know, a lot of us, we hire out of sometimes desperation or those times that we need it. We're maybe behind the numbers, whatever that may be for you. And then it's like, you just want to get that person in and you're talking them into it.
Right.
They get in there and then it's like, okay, now you got to do all this other, this other stuff. And it's like, it's almost like you want somebody, the attraction comes from being confident to know, hey, this is what we do this, and this.
Yeah.
There's no guesswork in that. They come in, they're not guessing what they have to do to make you happy. They're confident because they're saying, okay, I know I have to hit these numbers. I have to, do this amount of quotes. I have to, this talk time, follow this script.
Right.
Like, it gives them the tools to be successful. So many times, just like you were saying in the past, when I've hired someone that I didn't give the tools for, they're like questioning everything.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They're not confident. They're not. Their quotes are all over the place. Like they don't even know what good looks like.
And I think a big piece of that is and you guys know better than anybody. It's just the nature of our beast right now. There's so much pressure to write business and write it right away that if you're taking somebody from outside the industry and you're trying to build them up in your mold, that's not going to happen in a month. I don't think. Now, we're trying to get better at that. We're trying to really dial in and drill down on our onboarding and microwave that process. But if you're expecting a return on that person, I think in the first month, good on you. You're better at it than me. And so we've really tried to be realistic with that. I used to have a real estate license, and I bounced around to a couple brokerages, and there's that test, guys, is 168 credit hours. What's ours in P&C, like 20 to 40 or something like that? So think about all that stuff, and then their onboarding was worse than anything I've seen with our carrier. And so it really made me think about, and I screwed up my first 2 real estate deals because of it, and almost didn't get paid. And so it really made me think about, okay, if this is my projected long-term plan is just to go find talent, forget the industry, just go find talent and then bring them in and build them up and give them that confidence. Because I don't care if it's basketball, coaching, recruiting, selling loans, selling real estate, selling insurance. If you're not confident, it's going to come through. And you can't sell if you're not confident, and people are going to pick you apart, and you're not going to be successful, and you're going to go in 2 or 3 months, you're going to go look for a different opportunity.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. I can't hear you, Craig.
He's muting you, Craig.
I've been trying to do it for years. Finally worked. Nope. Yeah, we just recruited a couple new people for the first time in years for this agency because we're out in California and there's been it's been ridiculous. But I felt like such a newbie. There's like a lot has changed since I've done this before, so I just felt like a newbie at it. And I'm trying to get everything together, update stuff that we've had in the past. And, one of our sales agents, I talked to him the other day, but I just realized like he doesn't have that confidence. And we started role playing a little bit, and he said something about the confidence that I have. And I'm like, dude, you got to understand, I haven't quoted anyone forever.
Right.
It's not like these are universal principles. And what's great about it too, and this is why I like doing it, is because it changes someone.
Yeah.
Like sales is so amazing because once you build up that, like you're building a person and you're going to change that person's life. Sales, it done correctly, like it really does build their confidence in all areas of life. And, and I fell short of building him up. So we started working on it. And, I remember like in that moment, I'm like, I really like doing this because of that change. Yeah. Like watching someone change into that new person is just so awesome. I mean, that's part of being a coach, right?
Yeah, and it snowballs. Next thing you know, then they're helping the next person, and they're helping the next person, and that's when it gets really fun. That's why I kind of feel like what has happened to us over the last 18 months or so, and it's starting to take off. And then you know what? And then the next problem comes, and that you didn't foresee because maybe you've never been at this size or had this many people, and now you're looking at middle management for the first time, and now that's a different skill set. And how do you coach that person versus coaching, your baseline producers or your baseline service people? And do you have, because it gets to the point where if you really do love to that coaching aspect that you're talking about, Jason, you can't get that touch with everybody every day.
Right.
And so that's what I'm trying to do now is coach my coaches. And so that energy or that feeling that you're talking about gets multiplied and amplified through your middle management people or your managers or what have you. So that message and that feel, the key word is culture, is consistent. Because we all got into, at least I did. I like being a business owner because I like growing something, but I also like freedom. And that's kind of the new piece that I'm looking at right now in the evolution of our agency is that how do I have the message be consistent? How do I, if I'm not here, how do I have trust that everybody's still receiving the same intensity or feeling or, XYZ, whatever you want emphasized.
Yeah. It's like, it is funny, like the layers of, because it starts with sales. And then you move up, and then you're selling your management team.
Yep.
And then, so like the message changes, and that is what defines the culture, is the way everybody treats everybody. So it's like making the rules of the game. It's almost like creating the script, the vision, like everything that you're creating for your clients. Now you're creating it for your team.
Yep.
And then casting that, and then really just instilling like, this is what we don't do, this is what we do, this is where we're going, and the only way to get there is through these vehicles. Yep. And having them rely upon each other. It's so crazy too when you're in a good environment. Like if you do that well, it is so much fun to be a part of. Yeah. But if
I was just telling that to somebody the other day. I think it was one of our realtor partners. I was like, she's developing a onboarding. Doesn't matter what brokerage she is. She just loves to coach and mentor. And so she developed her own for any realtor from in the area. And she asked me to come speak on finding your why. That's one of my deals that I love, and how that can be different at different stages in your life for different people. So on and so forth. And I told her, I said, she goes, man, you have such good energy about this. It's really cool to see you speak. And I said, well, if you would have saw BJ, 4 years ago versus BJ now, my feeling on things was a lot different. And just like you said, this is fun for me again. I really like my role versus when I had to be in the weeds. I wasn't good at it. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the experience, everything that we've talked about. And so I was not the best person to be around on certain days. And now that I've, fought through those times that we tell our people to do as well, grind through it. There's light at the end of the tunnel. And we've gotten to a size where I can, hire, just like in coaching, I used to hire assistants to fill the self-analysis piece. I used to hire assistants to fill in where I wasn't good, whether it was scouting or just, XYZ, whatever it was. Now I'm doing the same thing with our agency staff.
Yeah.
And BJ's not good at this, so let's go and hire that trait or that skill set. And that takes a lot of analysis, takes a lot of self-awareness, which I think, we could talk about that forever. I think that's a major fleeting quality as well. But when you can sit back and do that and not think that you have to be the guy or the girl for everything that goes on in your agency, and you can focus on what you truly love to do, man, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. And I think when you start giving your team that kind of autonomy, they start taking ownership in like they in a sense of pride in the agency.
Yep.
I think, at least for me, when I used to be in control of all those things and took the control, everybody would start to ask me questions about their role all the time because I was the one defining the rules. I wasn't setting, hey, this is the objective, find a way to do it. I would tell them, I wouldn't tell them I would tell them the objective and this is how to do it.
Yep.
Okay, well, this isn't working, and how do I do this exactly? And what's really cool is you can still help them if they come to you on a how to do it. Mm-hmm. But when they your team will come up with things that you might have never thought of. They get jazzed up. They're pumping each other up, and you don't even have to be a part of it.
Yep. I think what you're referring to, I think, is just that ego piece. We all have to have enough ego that drives us to be good,
right?
But we can't have so much that it keeps us from growing. And I think and when you can give some leash back to them, that autonomy that you spoke of, man, it's cool. Because again, they're in the weeds. I'm not. I can't think that I know how to process a claim better than Marsha on my team. I've never been there. And if I am trying to tell her how to do it, when she knows I haven't done it, I'm just detracting from all her talent, all her skills. And again, her ownership that she's taking in the growth of the business. And so I think you can, that's a really slippery slope when it comes to ego. Again, to have enough to have the vision to grow, do the work behind the scenes to provide the platform for your people to grow, but then, relinquishing some of that to give it back and letting them kind of, like you're saying, hey, here's what we got to do. Go figure it out. How can we get to that end point? Mm-hmm. And they're a lot more bought in when they're coming up in a culture of that type. And again, when you have that type of process or culture or situation, you're actually feeding into your own desire or want, which is freedom as a boss, as a business owner. You don't want to be in the weeds at the end of the day. At least I don't.
No, I don't either. So you were talking about old BJ 4 years ago to now. What are those lessons that you learned? Tell us a couple of those stories that kind of shift those beliefs.
It was a lot of sacrifice because, as the financial piece, okay, the self-awareness, like I talked about, okay, I don't know X, Y, and Z. And those are three big things that we have to get figured out to get to the next level. Well, if I don't know them, how am I going to fill those holes? Is it a platform? Is it a person? It's going to be some type of investment or sacrifice on my part. And that's where I think, unfortunately, you got to make a decision at that point. If you don't have the financial resources, I'm very, very lucky. I got remarried 5 years ago, and my wife's a cardiac nurse, and she does well, and it allowed me to pour some money continually back into the agency. But if you're going to be the main breadwinner, now how do you learn that stuff? If it's you, now you're working 16 hours a day. That's your sacrifice, versus maybe sacrificing the money to, do whatever. And so I sacrificed. I went and financially either borrowed some money, did the analysis to figure out where the holes were, so we could have the platform to scale. Because I always knew what I wanted my role to be. I wanted my role to be business development and recruiting. That's what I like doing, because that's what I did for 20 years. But to do that again, I don't want to waste my own time and go find a super talent like Jason Feltman and then not have the things in place to have him be successful. I knew that couldn't happen. So that had to happen first for me to get there. And that's why those first 3 to 4 years were rough. And now, I'll be honest, COVID was a crappy deal for my wife. It was the best 2 years for my agency. My wife had to deal with it on the front lines every day in the hospital. The rates went down and we started kicking business through the uprights, and that's when we really started to take off. And I was fortunate enough to have some business coaches where I had the foresight to, okay, we're going to need this. Let's squirrel some away and dump it in, because we want to keep hiring people and do the things that we're doing now.
I'm back. How did you manage? Yeah, I mean, that was something. So if you're listening, you want to enjoy some fun, just go ahead and watch the YouTube and you'll see me not with no mic. So, how did you manage this? I don't know if you had the similar experience. Well, I know you had the similar COVID experience, but for us, we'd come to this point where we understood what needed to be done after years of fumbling, and then it was when it was time to execute, they said close, right? And so it was very strange. And as you talk to everyone, they're all like, oh, I'm not time to pull back on marketing and all this. And we had I had the money, I was ready to rock, and we just decided to go for it, but it was very, very scary going against the grain like that. Now in hindsight, it's like, okay, well, we were the 20% that got the 80% from that. Yeah, right?
Similar.
How was that for you?
I remember having one of my service team members come in and say, hey, I want to work from home. And I'm so type D, like, I'm just like, my wife is, you got to slow down, BJ, you got to slow down. I'm just like constantly at the 30,000 foot level, overlooking stuff and going back to hiring the right people that can, BJ, slow the hell down for a second, will you? Just let me talk to you. I remember after that conversation, because I wasn't even, the sickness and the COVID stuff, I had heard things, wasn't really raising on my radar yet. And I remember going home and talking to my wife, and I'm like, hey, is this going to be a big deal? And she goes, yeah. And within like a month is when she was in a cardiac cath lab. She came up in the industry as an ICU nurse. So she went back to ICU to help out. And she goes, I'll tell you this, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've never seen multiple people in an ICU unit at one time before. She goes, I've never, ever seen that. And she goes, so it's real. And so I remember literally going in the office the next day and saying, okay, we're going to change our mindset. If this is going to be what everybody's saying it's going to be, people are going to be home. They're going to have more time to talk to you. So take advantage of it. That's got to be our mindset right now. And, I don't know if that rah-rah speech is what did it, but it cemented the mindset in my expectations in my head. And that's what they heard every day. So I think it had something to do with it. And we just chose to take that mindset through it. And you combine that with the fact that the rates were down and we were getting a lot of referral business, it equaled a big couple of years for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting, like with your background of being a coach, it's something that comes natural. I would think, it's not natural, but it's something that you worked on for so long that it's become part of you, right? To to have those meetings every day, to meet with them, to pump them up and understand that role as the leader. For us, we were in the trenches, doing some of the stuff, and then like to shift to a point where we got it that, they require this talking to every day. Right. And it was really hard to lead into that because you can't see the results right away. Right. And like humans, we always, well, it didn't work after a day, so it must not work. But when we started sticking to that, it was like, a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks, all of a sudden it's like the change happens. Right. And, it's amazing. So anybody listening, I think, needs to take that from this and from what you did, because it really does shine the light on how important it is to have that daily meeting. I mean, just the daily meeting is a huge impact.
We implemented a daily huddle about 1.5 years ago. And we do it every day. It doesn't have to be long, but we do a daily huddle, and depending on the day of the week, it's a different emphasis. And then it breaks out into a breakout room for just our salespeople. We start it with everybody, and then it'll do a breakout room for just our salespeople where we do some accountability. But it goes back to that, that slow drip concept that you're talking about, where they're hearing it consistently, so it becomes just part of what is expected, what they do, versus, what I think some of us do where, and I know I used to do this, is like, okay, it's going good, and all of a sudden it goes bad, and now you want to reemphasize everything. It's like that old saying, when's the best time to work on your roof? It's when the sun's shining. If you wait for when it's raining and then you realize you got a problem, you're hosed. And so we try to do that daily maintenance, so it just becomes part of the deal. It wasn't easy. We recently implemented. We've done the huddle for a while. We've recently implemented that breakout room where we make the salespeople articulate certain expectations versus maybe submit it in a document and then they forget about it, right? And now it's up to you to hold the accountability. What I really love, what we've gone to just recently, is having them articulate it. Okay, how many households did you quote? Well, why was it that far underneath our expectations? Make them answer that question, because they don't want to do that 2 or 3 days in a row in front of their peers. It starts wearing on them, and they start exposing themselves. And it helps you in to make the hard decisions that we have to make as owners a lot easier, because they're kind of making the decision for you. Again, if you've shown those expectations and clearly communicated that from day one, or even in the recruiting process, it makes those whole things a lot easier versus kind of putting our head in the sand and hoping. And then when it comes to making those tough calls, those aren't good days,
I mean, putting these guardrails in place really creates those expectations, and then, no surprises, right? Like what Jason was talking about, not, if you don't give those expectations, I mean, literally you can see how terrible everything goes, right? Like they just do whatever. And if you go back and look, and even if you trading them properly, bringing them down the pipeline and then letting go. I mean, of course, not micromanaging, but like if you totally let go of it, I mean, it slowly starts to decline, right? This entropy.
Yeah, it's funny too, because it's like I've really realized when it comes to even the activity, the perception that they might have is totally different than the actual activity.
Yep.
So like we'll we really track like talk time, like what, even as little as them marking something in the CRM correctly.
Yep.
Doing the accountability on that, you really start seeing the holes. I mean, I think one of the things is we don't realize, even though we are paying someone to do a job, right? I know a lot of agency owners, I'm paying them to do that. But like when you're in the moment and you're quoting multiple people, sometimes you forget to put in notes. Sometimes you forget to mark something in a CRM. And you get in the habit of whatever you're doing, and you don't even realize it. So it's not necessarily their fault. It's our fault for not laying out the activity, the expectations in the activity rather than the expectations of the result, because those are the leading indicators rather than the lagging indicators, is all that activity. And then just checking it.
Yeah.
Like just checking it for them.
You're
like
preaching, you're preaching to the choir. Cause we literally, 2 years ago, we went to bringing in our own telemarketers and having them hit certain requirements for 3 months and then sitting them down and being like, hey, if you were licensed, this is the amount of transfers you produced in the last 3 months. This is our close rate. This is our average premium per item. So if you'd have been licensed, this is what you would have made. And that's what we did for the last year and a half. And we've got 4 people now between the age of 18 and 22 on our team. One of them's leading. 2 of them are our top 3 in sales this month and this year. But what was eye-opening to me, and it shouldn't have been, because I coached 18 to 22-year-old knuckleheads for 20 years of my life, which is why the hair went completely gray. I'm just happy I have it. Is they need to be told those things more than once. And that's what, again, going back to the self-analysis or self-awareness, we're all business owners. I would have bet that all 3 of us, if somebody tells us what we have to do to be successful in our books or our agencies one time, we only need to hear it once and we go do it. 90% of us aren't like that. That's why they're not agency owners themselves or business owners themselves, but they still are a valuable piece of what you're trying to get done. And so I literally just hired that position that you're talking about, Jason, of the guy that's going to double check the pipelines, the guy that's going to, listen to more phone calls than I ever would have got to and give immediate feedback. That person that's going to check the quotes and make sure that they're not getting sloppy with the roof type or the square footage or XYZ, because they do need to be told those things more than once. If they didn't, they wouldn't be in the situation they would. Or what I even love doing right now is hopefully in 5 years, they want to go start their own deal. And now I've been that person to help them elevate and do things that they didn't think they could do. Because we all know insurance has got a pretty low barrier to entry. But yet you can teach somebody the skills to go be a big time business owner in any field, I think, because if they've got a good grasp on what the 3 of us do every day to be as successful as we are, dang, there's a lot of businesses that I think don't take this much, and you can be really successful.
100%.
It's amazing.
So what's the number one piece of advice you give any agent listening out there that wants to grow their agency?
Oh man. Wow. Being able, I think being able to temper your sense of urgency that you have to do what you want to do, and the understanding of what we just talked about, the growth of your agency isn't number 1 on your people's priority list. It's not keeping them up at night. But how do you articulate that and communicate through their lens so they're doing what you want at that standard or at that high level so they can see where it benefits them? Are you laying out the things to, whether it's the contest, the incentives, the PTO, so they do on Sunday night think, you know what, I got a pretty good gig tomorrow. A lot of my friends hate what they got to do tomorrow morning on a Monday morning, but on Sunday night, your people are going, you know what, I get to go be involved in a pretty cool situation. I think if you can do that, I do it. It's hard. I used to be a lot worse at it. I used to be a lot more Coach Hill than agency owner BJ Hill. And I've tried to, it's been hard to temper those things, understanding when to kick in the butt, so to speak, and when to pat him on the backside and say, hey, it's all right. This thing's not going to go down in flames because you didn't make that sale. Let's learn from it and let's try to do better tomorrow.
Love it, man.
Amazing. I love it. We're gonna let you go because we've kept you 13 minutes after. I think we could pull a Rogan and go 4 hours because you've got really good stuff. So I think we're gonna have to bring you back for a part 2. I hope you're down for that. And so good to meet you. I wish that my technical.
Yeah, we got to do it again just for
challenges
that. I
didn't
mean,
happen over there.
whatever Jason did to mute you for that long, that was impressive. I tell you
I
what.
know.
It was
I
impressive.
know. He has the master button over there.
I just
I
wanted
don't
to
think you
keep
can say
the gray hair, gray beard
Yeah,
dudes.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. Craig didn't have it. He's too dark
I know.
and no beard.
I know it.
Well, that's because I'm 27.
I was going to say 29, but I'm glad I didn't.
I'm just an agent.
So.
Good stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
BJ, thanks so much. Awesome to
guys.
have you. Where is Loveland near
What's that?
Denver?
We're an hour
Where's
north,
Loveland?
50 minutes north.
An hour
Right on
north.
the
Okay.
interstate.
My son lives in
directly 50
Denver.
minutes
And
north. Yep.
cool. Well, my son's up in Denver, so maybe we'll
me
swing
know.
by and say hi. Cool.
Thank you,
Well,
guys.
thank you. We appreciate you coming on, and let's talk.
Thanks so
soon.
much, BJ.
Thanks, guys.
Great meeting you.
Thanks.
You bet.